Hey, welcome to the City Rev Life Podcast. My name is Pastor Robey. I'm here having a conversation with Dr. Tariq King, good friend of mine, longtime part of City Rev, and speaks globally on the subject of AI, leads a company that is helping to integrate AI into various aspects of other businesses. And we're talking about AI as believers. It is obviously moving very fast. We've already talked about in this kind of update series on how, in a previous episode, how it's just kind of ingrained into our everyday life. It's definitely part of our kids' lives. In another episode, we talked about how do we engage our kids on the subject. So if you missed those episodes, go back and check those out. But what we're going to talk about today is where is AI going? And just as someone that's in the industry on the front lines of it, where is it going? And then how can we be prepared for that as believers? Before we get into that, I just have a follow-up question, because the last time we did a series like this, like a year ago or maybe a little longer, I asked you this question. I was a little surprised by your answer, so I just want to get an update. Okay. How likely is it that robots are going to take over the world?
Yeah, this is still a problem that a lot
Oh man.
yeah, there's still a problem that a lot of people, very smart people, are still very concerned with. And actually our discussion on agents probably might increase your fear level.
See, last time,
takeover.
time I thought, like, as an expert on this field, you'd be like, oh, come on, like, we're not going to enter into the matrix anytime soon. And you're like, no, yeah, it's a real conversation. I'm like, wait, what? So what is it like? Give me the honest take. Like, what does this actually mean?
I mean, the honest take is that, like, in Hollywood, we think and see about these machines becoming more autonomous, then taking on somewhat of an evil persona, and then like wiping us out, right? Terminator, whatever it is, the agents in the Matrix, hence the term
Yes.
agent, right? That like there's a level of agency that causes us to start to worry that if these agents actually take on the wrong data, they can start doing very bad things. So honestly, like, there's as with most things in software and in technology, testing and security and guardrails always fall behind until something bad happens. And then everyone's like, oh, let's, governance, AI governance right now is a bit of a problem. There's very sporadic things out there. There's the EU AI Act. There's different things there, but it's not really being enforced. And bad things can and will happen if we don't get on top of it.
Yeah. So what is out there trying to, like, at least have the conversation of how do you keep, as AI, as it's gaining its own agency and can take on not just synthesizing data, but take on complex tasks. What's out there preventing the end of the world?
Nothing. there's nothing. There's been.
Are you a robot? I just want to verify. Like, has someone taken over Tariq?
Look, there's actually a story of a company. This is how bad I think it is. Again, not to scare people, but there was a company who gave some autonomy to an AI agent, and that agent wiped out, just deleted their core database with their entire business, just in one shot, just like that, down the drain through a database deletion.
Why did it do that?
So it did that because it, number one, was given permission to do so. It didn't have any, well, I don't actually know if that's true, so let me not say that, but to my knowledge, it didn't have any ill intent, right? It was just part of a workflow, and part of that workflow came to the decision, let me delete this database. So it wasn't like trying to take over or not, but you pose the question, what is out there stopping us? And if a company in its own right is developing an agent that then can go and clearly do something that they would not want done as any kind of business goal, for sure, like wipe out our whole business by deleting all of our proprietary data. If that can happen in a local context, then on a broader context, we're even further behind, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's literally not much happening except maybe the grace of God is helping us to keep it together, but not
I
any guardrails technologically.
Yes, and I think about as they're bringing like actual household robots and they're testing that. Like I just think about like waking up one night and there's a robot just looking down at me in the middle of the night.
Yeah,
It's terrifying to think of, even if it is C-3PO. Anyway, um,
Star
all
Wars.
that to say, these are very real conversations, and this is not to get we don't have a spirit of, in all seriousness, we don't have a spirit of fear.
Mhm.
These are not things everything that happens in history is easily in the hands of the Lord, and so
Amen.
we never operate with fear. We are still we. This is why we need believers, intelligent, innovative believers, going into these fields to help use wisdom and shape where these things are going. But this is kind of part of where AI is going from what you've told me
Yeah.
is that uh, AI is taking a little bit more, it's operating as an agent. So just
Yeah.
speak to that. The term is it agentics?
Agentic, yeah, agentic AI. So remember, even a couple of years back when we were talking, it was we were mainly talking about chats, and still today there's a lot of like, hey, asking AI this and blah blah,
Sure.
and the responses are all textual. Where the industry has gone and continues to go very rapidly is that we've taken these large language models, we've taken this kind of approach where we have natural language processing and combine that with reasoning mechanisms. So now you're talking about models that just can't generate text, but they can actually think in a way, in quotation marks. They can reason about things, and then combine that also with integrating it with tools. So the ability for these models to come take a problem, reason it through, and then take action on it. That is what an AI agent is in its core. It is a combination of natural language processing and generation with reasoning with tools. So think of it this way practically. Now AI is not just able to maybe get you can get it to create a shopping list, right, of items that you want. It might actually be able to go log into Publix's website, create these orders or Instacart, and do the entire order for you, and all of a sudden you have those groceries coming to your home, right? So it goes from, and we've seen some of this even in home assistants, where if you give like Alexa or Google Home enough permissions, it can restock your groceries. It can do all sorts of things automatically because it's getting more permissions and there's more autonomy also in the decision making process. So that's what it's all about, agency. A lot of it is playing out in the professional world because people want to increase productivity and workflows
Mm-hmm.
in businesses and automate things that might be repetitive. But where it's also obviously impacting us on a daily basis as well, as we're seeing these agents now come into our homes and have, if you give it permissions, it can now do more.
Yeah. Now we started off this episode talking about Terminator, so that put that put a little bit of a damper on understanding AI doing these complex tasks. But I mean, in all seriousness, it's not all scary. Like there's some
No.
positive things. So let's kind of, as we've been doing, let's talk about some positives and then some cautions.
Yeah.
And maybe Tariq, you can speak to the positives both in a professional space. Like there's people that are business owners, or they're trying
Hmm.
to think through
Sure.
how do I use AI in my professional life, and as they're thinking about agentic AI, how do I think about that from in a professional space positive, and how do I think about that in a personal space positive, and then we'll go to cautions after that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we talked in a earlier episode just that productivity is like one of the big wins here, and these are all like productivity plays, especially in the business context, right? Because what used to take teams of 4 or 5 people to do, for example, I work in the software engineering world, and now it probably means less developers. It might mean less folks who are actually testing the application, right? So maybe with a smaller team, maybe with a product owner, right, or a domain expert who knows what needs to be developed and can verify the output. Maybe that person with someone who's operating the platform or taking care of the technical side, maybe the two of them could actually do the work that used to take 6 or 7 people. And think about this across any domain, for legal services, AI in healthcare. Like, so a big part of it is like, hey, can we use AI as a force multiplier to do more with less,
Mm-hmm.
right? And of course, this brings about a whole bunch of things, like even fears of the job landscape and what that will
Mm-hmm.
look like. But it doesn't have to be, gloom and doom even from that perspective, because there's also the play of like, let's not just get rid of the people that we don't need for this task, but there's a lot of other things that we don't get to that we
Yeah.
can increase output, increase throughput, and make our businesses grow and more productive by now saying like, hey, we enable these people with AI. These 3 people aren't needed for that task anymore, but what else haven't
Right.
we done that we've been forsaken? Can we now get these people enabled with AI to do this, and keep going like that?
Yeah.
So tremendous benefits when it comes to scale, when it comes to productivity, just out the gate from a business perspective.
Yeah, let me just hit on that real quick. I think that's a really great point. I do think that there is, anytime there's new technology, I mean, even like the Industrial Revolution,
Yep.
it was like, how are machines taking away jobs? But I love that perspective of it should, in the best case scenario, it should just create scale, not necessarily reducing,
Mm-hmm.
the a workforce. Like it's now just equipping the current workforce with in a company with even more capacity. And so now, if a company needs to reduce their workforce for other reasons,
Yeah.
that's a separate discussion. That's not
Yeah.
an AI discussion, but AI, it could be just giving every person in the workforce an amazing tool to get more done and to do greater innovations. I think that's great. What else in the personal side?
Yeah, on the personal side, I mean, I see tremendous opportunity for us to like leverage agents on a daily basis for achieving more of what I think we've been trying to do with the home assistants. And like I look at like everything that has gone on over the years. Like there's like the connected home, right? There's also all of these other points of interaction with what is maybe our home environment, with everything else, all the portals that are used by kids and their extracurriculars or the school systems, etc. Again, thinking about agents in a general way, the pattern here is that you give these agents or large language models reasoning as well as access to tools, and now they can help work for you. They can tell you, um, just thinking of our bills, right? So a big thing, I'm again not a big planner, not big on top of things. I don't like a lot of administrative stuff happening. So when it comes to dealing with bills, that in my mind has to be automated. Like and there's still a few systems that I deal with here in the lovely city of Pembroke Pines that are not fully automated for what I want to do, and I still have to do those things manually. But in my mind, these things, this automation. Now, of course, I'm still going in and checking and reviewing that, hey, all the stuff that is on my credit card was indeed me, and I didn't just automatically blindly pay a bill and move forward. But when I think of the kind of convenience that that automation gives us, if I think that on a larger scale, again with all the different portals, we can now leverage agents from the hub of our home to help manage a lot of our lives and do things automatically, like restocking goods in your home, paying your child's school fees, planning, what should be the best order to do things in for the different children or the different people or members of your household. It can solve problems that probably would take us a long time to solve without AI, and now automatically take those things from just informational on the screen to something actually tangible. Like, hey, I set up this appointment at the doctor for your kid to get their
Mm.
their annual checkup, and here's the verification.
Yeah.
So it's really like another level of assistance, right?
So, talk to us a little bit about from the standpoint of like just security. So, like identity security, financial security, like all the frauds that can come. I think there'd probably be a lot of people that, would be open to having chats with these, different AI platforms, but giving it financial information, login information to like other to accounts that are related to bills, medical access to medical information, some of that stuff. Like, I think a lot of people would be very cautious about giving AI access to that.
As they should, but then also at the same time, so what's been happening is that all of the businesses, all the verticals are applying and using AI. And of course, the big thing that you want to make sure is safe is your data. And so even when you talk to them as software professionals, they're making sure that there's guardrails to protect data, to protect customer data, etc. But it's not stopping them from using the technology even in that sphere. And what's one of the biggest advances that's been happening is that it's become a lot easier to actually connect systems. There's something called the Model Context Protocol. It lets you connect systems to AI and still maintain whatever authentication or security practices are there. Now, does that mean so there might be less of a worry of losing or getting your password stolen? No different than the banking information that you have right now that you log into. You're just obviously now giving an agent access to be able to do that. And we do some of these things all the time with our phones, etc. Like, one click login, one click purchase. We do this stuff already. Now there's just a layer that allows agents to kind of connect to those things. It does add in an additional point of failure and something that could be very much of a hub of like, if they get into this agent and this agent has access to all the things, now that's a big problem. So it's not that we don't think about it at all, but I also don't think that it's going to be enough to stop us from getting to a point where over
Yeah.
time we do trust it with certain things, and we're trusting it with more and more as we see it actually working. And I think there's a big race right now, both um, in the professional world to see who can get there first and do these things,
Mm.
and it's going to also creep into our because AI is in our homes and there's a whole market for these home assistants. I think is also going to creep into that because even that in itself is a business for someone, and they want to be the first to get there to say like, hey, you can safely use our home agent to do all these things and automate your life, and all the security and guardrails are in place if there's a level of trust there that they've been able to reach, right?
I think what's eye opening is, it sounds like, well, I would never give AI my financial information, and I think what I'm hearing from you is it's like it's already being used with your.
You've already given you've already given your financial information, I guarantee you, to a number of other systems
Yeah.
that even if you might not count it as AI. So I used to have a very easy way to kind of show people that in a business world there's probably a similar analogy that I can give or think of in the home context. But when people start worrying about like, hey, now we're going to give AI all this proprietary information that our company has, like that's a big risk. And I would always ask them like, hey, do you use like Microsoft Word and Office, and or do you use like Google Docs? Like, does your company use this? Because if your company uses this, all of your IP is already tied up in this system,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
No, it's not that you're storing like raw passwords or anything as raw text in these documents, but all your secrets for your business, all the things,
Mm-hmm.
they're all stored there, and they need to have enterprise protections.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that you trust the tech giants with this information, and that we trust our financial institutions, it's out there in a system somewhere. And the same level of enterprise level security that are provided there that you trust, if AI is behind that same level of enterprise security, then you're likely then to be eventually say one day, well, yeah, it's all there anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Now AI is behind that same thing. I can try to trust it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that you're blindly putting trust somewhere. you have trust somewhere that there is protections, and if AI is behind those same protections, you'll eventually open up if there's benefit to using it that way.
So let's move into some of the cautions. So there's some benefits to that, to AI having kind of agency, acting as an agent. But what would you say are some of the cautions for that we need to be thinking about, because this is where AI is going? How can we be ready for that, and how we're thinking about that as believers?
Yeah, I think like a big thing here is knowing that in one case it was like informational. We're asking AI its opinion on things. Now we're going to the fact where if we give AI the power to reason and make decisions and actually just go out there and take actions on our behalf, it becomes a lot more risky for us, right? Because I think as human beings, like we are the ones who are typically the ones who make the judgments, the one who makes the call, the one who says like this is what we're going to do for the betterment of our family, for the betterment of our household, whether those be financial decisions, whether those be spiritual decisions, or something to do with our kids.
Mm.
Like we're typically the ones like making those decisions and acting on them. With this new world, you could have, especially if we start thinking about taking inputs, right? Because AI has visibility into our household schedules, how we do things. What if now that intelligence starts to say like, hey, I noticed you have, this going on, and this might be a conflict. You want to reschedule this? Seems very innocent. Seems fine. However, the more insight it has into different things, the more it might be able to start actually being the one doing the parenting or doing the household organization,
Mm.
and identifying bottlenecks and trying to optimize. And now giving it the ability to rearrange those things. And then we're blindly just waking up in our own homes, kind of like foreigners, like just hit, what's the script? What's on the agenda? You see this all the time. What's on the agenda for me today? AI, right? In the movies, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then you're just kind of walking through this. And I think that this is very dangerous because not only is it a risk to us that we just become like blindly followers of AI,
Mm.
but as we think about like our spirituality, we think about God's purpose for us, God's mission, God's purpose for our kids, God's purpose for us as a couple or spouses, right? Like, how much of that are you going to start to relinquish to this technology? And then how could this now be used to influence like the mass of people? So if I am now the enemy on that side, thinking about how do I influence these folks, well, get them to fall in love with this thing and depend on it and use it, and then I flip the script and I'll start using it for different kind of agenda.
You by enemy, you mean like spiritually
Yeah,
enemy, like the
spiritual enemy.
devil?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I love that idea of making sure, especially as AI down the road gets more integrated, make sure we're still leading.
Yeah.
Because, and I think what's really important for us as believers, even more so, is maybe now than ever, is to make sure we're not separating the sacred and the secular. There's no such thing as sacred and secular. It's all sacred to God. And so the way we handle our time, the way we handle our money, those things are not that AI could be helping us with. Those are sacred things to God. And the way we handle those in two in particular, because we've been talking about like AI shopping for us. We've talked about AI scheduling things for us and helping to manage time. Like those, again, if it's a tool, that's fine. But if it needs to be reviewed because it can't be the leader.
Yeah.
Those are two of the biggest indicators of our worship, are how we spend our time and how we spend our money. And those are all over and over and over and over and over and over in scripture. Those are indicators of where our priorities are, what's first in our life. And I have no confidence at all in AI to help me preserve my worship before the Lord. So if AI is looking at my schedule and I prioritize some things spiritually,
Mm-hmm.
that, hey, I may be exhausted, or hey, my kids may have practice, but in our home student ministry for my kids are a priority, or I know I'm always going to be busy. It's never going to be convenient for me to be in a small group, but I understand the role of that fellowship. Like, I am never going to trust AI, even if I've prompted it well and
Yeah.
I've trained it well. I'm not going to let it have leadership in my life over issues of time and finances. And so understanding, one, that big picture umbrella, I'm still leading in these key areas of my life.
Yeah.
But then also, I think the regular review, because of something you said in a previous episode
Mm-hmm.
about drift. It can never be a set it and forget it,
Yeah.
because it makes mistakes and it drifts. And so it's always got to be a tool that has a lot of review.
Yeah, I think it will boil down to like the level of autonomy that you're going to give AI on different things. And this is where
Mm,
I think like we have to really take like a systematic approach to that, because maybe there's some tasks, maybe there's some decisions, like you said, that hey, you know what, I'm okay with that. Like this is not on the large scale of things like going to influence or impact my household in a way that I
yeah,
think it will take us away from the Lord or draw us in a direction that we don't want to go. But these other things, AI doesn't have autonomy over. I think the hard part is though is as we rely on this technology more, um, can it creep up in a way where we don't realize that it has taken us in this direction? Um, because many of the times, I mean, you think about cellular phones, et cetera, like we spend a lot of time on these phones. uh, how has that impacted us?
mm,
There's been many ways where that has impacted us so negatively. Of course, there's great things that phones have brought to our lives,
sure,
but then is taken away. A lot of time is taken away connections, conversations at the dinner table. Excuse, like you have to put guardrails in place to protect that. Like, hey, no electronics at the table, right?
right,
Like this is not. We're gonna have dinner and talk to each other like a
yeah,
family does, right? And sometimes it seems even strange when you say that out loud. But I think that there's going to be analogous things in our
sure,
homes related to AI and AI usage or what AI is doing that we have to do to preserve like the family unit, to preserve like our alignment with Christ and with how he would want us to live our lives. Because otherwise, these accidental things will, and I don't think they're accidental, I think they're just actually very crafty ways that the enemy has used to kind of like,
sure,
draw us in different directions. So I think as Christians, we have to like look out for that, and we have to actually contribute to how we can, make it a priority that a Christ-centered household, even in the presence of technology like
hmm,
AI, is something that we making sure does not get tarnished
yeah,
in the whole like of everything.
yeah. I think, and all that to say, it is a tool, and it's a tool we shouldn't be scared of. It's a tool that we shouldn't. Again, I think Christians, understanding the fullness of Scripture, we should be leaning into innovation. And I
Yeah.
can see a family as saying, "Hey, no, actually, we're monitoring it carefully. We lead; it doesn't lead us,
Hmm.
but we've actually leveraged AI to actually help us create more time as a family, make sure that we're still prioritizing how we use our time for the Lord. So we spend time. It's used to help me with my schedule. Maybe someone would say to create time to spend with the Lord. It helps me figure out and problem solve how can we make sure that being in fellowship with other believers and being an active part of my church is a priority. Like, it can be used in a positive. We just have to stay leading and reviewing. I think it's like any other technology. It's like the internet. Like, what incredible, like cellular phones. Now we have the Bible in multiple
Yeah.
translations with
Yeah.
us at all times. It's just we have to have the heart to use it in a way that honors the Lord.
Yeah, I think so there's been a kind of phrasing that I've seen. It started from hearing like the use of AI for good or for social good.
Hmm.
And as you were going through that, I was thinking, and this is something that we've talked about like briefly, but um, how is AI being used for the kingdom, and who's really leading that? Is it responsibility of the church, or is it responsibility of every believer? And what does that look like in our homes? But what does that look like on a larger scale? Because again, coming from a business perspective and seeing all sorts of industries, AI for manufacturing, AI for healthcare, um, I think that there's a big thing here is like, how are we equipping believers? How are we equipping our families as believers with like this technology and using it for the kingdom? And how do we get all the same kinds of acceleration
Yeah.
benefits, but have that play into like, hey, growing God's mission and going towards that like even faster.
Yeah. Man, it's so helpful, and you're just such a valuable voice for us, Tariq, as a church to just be aware of where the conversation is and has grown, where it's going, and just helping us just think and think strategically. And as I just think about our vision to see South Florida transformed, a big part of that is raising up this next generation, raising up our kids, making sure our homes are healthy and that we're making disciples, making math tastes in our homes. And so this is just a major part of our life. And so I'm just very grateful for you speaking that wisdom in. And I hope this podcast series on AI, just kind of an update series, has been helpful. It's been something that hopefully has been helpful for you to be thinking about how to use this in a way that as a godly believer, I hope this has been helpful. Maybe share it with someone if you think it would be helpful for them. But thanks for joining the City Rev Life podcast. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for listening to the City Rev Life podcast. Feel free to subscribe and leave a rate and review. We love it when you share it with your friends on social media, so don't forget to tag us at cityrev.church. If you're interested in more resources, download our City Rev Church app and follow us on social media. Have a great day.